Hi, welcome to Quinn's RC. I think of the CR18Ps, either the first version or the EVO version. The Rock Van is aesthetically the crowd favorite. RC all-wheel drive sent me some shocks. Thank you very much, RC all-wheel drive. I did a poll on my community page on my YouTube channel asking which truck should get the upgrades. There are also some drive shafts. Unfortunately, the drive shafts only fit the first version and not the EVO. But this EVO Rock Van was the overall winner in the poll. So I'm going to put these RC all-wheel drive oil-filled shocks on there. Thank you, RC all-wheel drive, for sending these to me. They look really nice. They're very smooth. They also come with 2 sets of springs. So what I like to do before I work on a Rock Van is take off the body entirely. There are 2 screws, one here, bolts, I guess, that you need to take off in order to have the body off. So I'll do that now. Remember, if you're ever going to pull any wires out of the ESC, make sure you take a photo or a video, as I am here, so you can remember where to plug things back in. Now, to get to the shocks, you don't have to take off the wheels, but I think it's a lot easier to get in there if you take off the wheels. So I'll do that next. Make sure when you take the hex off, you don't lose this little pin right here. Take that out. You have a magnetic parts tray or tool mat like this one that I got from cowrc. You can more easily keep track of those. Something it took me a while to realize is that the CR18P stock wheels are actually directional. You can see that the spokes go in a forward direction here. If you get them mixed up, they'll turn and go the other way, which doesn't look right. This is the first time I've had the wheels off this vehicle, so while I'm there, I'm going to take the portal covers off and put a little grease in there, because from the factory they usually have a little grease, but they don't have very much, and most people like to add a little bit of grease. It's 4 bolts in the portal, pretty easy to take apart. You may want to be a little bit careful because more pieces can come out than you expect. So you can see there's a little bit of shiny grease in there. But I like to use, when you use some super lube, you can use pretty much any kind of machine grease. I like the way this stuff goes on. Use a little screwdriver just to add a little more grease on these gears. And I'll repeat the process for all 4 corners. Doesn't have to be a lot, but just to add a little more. When you're putting the bolts back on the portal covers, I say this in just about every video I've done, be careful, because these are the ones I've stripped out the most. So don't tighten up too much, otherwise they will strip. While I'm here, I decided I'd add some grease to the axles as well. It's just 4 bolts to take off the cover. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of grease in here. I'll put it on the outside. I don't need to take it all apart. As it turns, it should move to the pinion in the back and get that some lubrication as well. I've greased up the portals and the axles, so now I can start taking off the shocks. It's a Phillips bolt at the top, and then at the bottom it's a 1.5 millimeter hex, so they're really easy to take off. I'll start taking them off now. Getting the double ball stud, I guess, out of the link can be a bit tricky. I find it's easier to go this way than this way. The little ring right here gets caught up. I use these forceps to just work it off the first one. Easier said than done usually. I find this frustrating task every time. Once you can get it off, then you can get it onto the next one and then just twist it out like that. Something to note, you can see the stock plastic shock is much shorter than the new shocks. So they do come with stiffer springs, but I'm going to use the light springs because this is going to increase the ride height of the Rock Van, which is already kind of top heavy, and I want this to compress as much as we can, just so it's not too top heavy. So I'm going to leave these springs on. Something to note, there are 3 different ball ends that come in the shock kit. One on the left here, the longer one, is for the top of the shock. The one in the middle, which is a little bit shorter, is for the lower link, and then the little short one is the one that goes in the bottom of the shock. So top of the shock, link, bottom of the shock. And it comes with little O-rings, and you put one of those on each side of the ball. I'll put one together and show you what I mean. Here's one shock put together. So the longer spacer goes on the top. This goes towards the inside, towards the vehicle. Then the short ball goes on the bottom of the shock with the wide collar to the outside. That's theoretically to stop the lower shock from popping off this way. And then you take the shorter spacer and insert that into the link. And then that all goes into the axle. Here it is installed into the axle. I didn't use the O-rings on the link ball, but I did on the shock balls on either side, both on the top and the bottom. So this is approximating the spacing on the stock shocks. So I think that's correct. Now I'll do the top one. It's kind of hard to see probably in there because of the inner fenders. It comes standard on the EVO, which is nice, but it's just one of the longer spacers up there in between the chassis and the top of the shock. I'll get everything put back together now. Okay, wheels are back on, body is back on, and see a little glimpse of red in there. Sits way better. Here is CR18P, the non-EVO, but the shocks are pretty much the same. This is stock shocks. You can see it's much bouncier, whereas with the RCL wheel drive shocks, sits much better. No bounce. It settles. I think flex is about the same, maybe a little better. You use the 3-tire test. You can see there's just about a finger's worth of, even less if you give it a little tap, of space underneath that rear wheel. But on the stock CR18P, it's much bigger. When you push this down, the other front end lifts. With the new shocks, if you push it down, the front end is actually not lifting over here. You've just got this tiny gap. So it makes a huge difference when you're crawling. The weight transfer is much more predictable, and it just looks better and feels better when it goes over the bumps. In conclusion, I think that shocks are one of the first mods you should do for these RTRs. Wheels and tires next. Wheels with a little weight, or maybe some portal covers with a little weight, will help the flex even more. So when we're doing this test, if you've got a little bit of weight on these wheels, it'll settle it down more and give you a little more flex and push the shocks to their full compression and extension. Thanks once again to RC All-Wheel Drive for sending me these bits to include in my videos. There will be links to all of these items in the description below. Be sure to check it out. There's a discount code for RC All-Wheel Drive in there too. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I really have fun making these videos. Such a great hobby. Have fun and be kind until next time.